Good afternoon from London. It is 1 p.m. UK time, and we use this T4 TV live stream to have regular conversations with friends around the world around topical issues in education. And today, I've been reflecting for the last few weeks at least about all the mindless violence that takes place around the world. And previously, we've discussed this topic about education in crisis zones and in fragile contexts. And so when I think about what has been happening in particular with regards to Palestine and Gaza, I thought it would be an appropriate juncture to actually have a discussion with three friends, two of which are in Palestine at the moment, and another one who's in New York, to discuss exactly how we should be thinking about what is happening. But before I say any more, welcome to this T4 TV live stream. And because we're on social media, I really do want to make sure that this is an engaging format. And so if you're on Facebook and watching this, what I'd like to encourage you to do is go to this website, which is streamyard.com/Facebook, and give permission to StreamYard, which is the tool that we use, so that when you make a comment, I can actually flash up your name and your profile pic, so that you also see yourself on screen. You can also join all of our social media channels. We have a LinkedIn group called T4 Education Our World. We have a YouTube channel. We have a Facebook group where you're probably watching this. We have a Twitter account, and there's also a new platform called Clubhouse, where we have a Clubhouse called Global Education. And of course, you can also connect with me on LinkedIn, where this is being streamed at the moment. So without further ado, I live in London, and one may say, why is it that I'm interested in speaking about what happens in Palestine or in any part of the world, actually? And I do think that we live in a world that is connected. And so the actions, of what take place in different parts of the world do have an impact on what happens over here. And so when I see all these violence being projected on TV, because that is how we engage with it, we see all these actions take place locally in London, as an example. And as horrific as the situation on the ground there is, equally, I would say to you that we also need to show, restraint and abide by the notion of peace, actually, when it comes to these kinds of situations. So, as context, what I want to share with you is that as per UN figures, all schools in Gaza are still closed. There are almost 600,000 school-age children can't access education. And almost 21,300 education staff are affected. And what we see over this most recent spate of attacks, almost 70,000 people have been temporarily displaced during the escalation, and that results in about 30,000 children who are school students who will need emergency education supplies. Now, in this context, what I want to do is I want to bring on a friend of mine who is Yasmine Sherif. Yasmine, welcome to this talk, and you have previously joined me, and we've had a discussion. Tell us a little bit before we wade into this topic about education cannot wait. I mean, you've been going for 5 years now, if I'm not mistaken. Tell us, in terms of, in the context of what we're talking about today, what is education cannot wait?
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me. Education Cannot Wait is the very first global fund for education in emergencies and protracted crisis. It was established at the World Humanitarian Summit in 2016, and as a matter of fact, we are commemorating our 5th years of existence today, and have reached 5 million children with quality education over the past years, and 10 million children as a response to COVID-19. Now, what we do and what is relevant to the situation in Gaza, in Palestine, is that we reach those left furthest behind, those who are often what we consider unreachable, those who have lost everything because of conflict, wars, occupation, forced displacement. So Gaza is one of our priorities right now and in the years to come. especially given the figures that you just provided.
Thank you for sharing. I now want to bring in a friend of mine called Refaat Sabbah. Refaat is, my education on Palestine has actually come from Refaat, where he and I worked on the Global Teacher Prize many years ago. Refaat is the director of the Teacher Creativity Center in Palestine, but is also the president of the Global Campaign for Education, which is the largest civil society grouping of education actors, and a very powerful voice globally and not just in Palestine. Refaat, what is it that's happening on the ground today?
Well, thank you, Vikas, and thank you, Yasmine. And really, I want to thank the Education Cannot Wait. Each day, Education Cannot Wait approve that this organization and this initiative is really working in a very difficult situation, and their principle is clear. This is thank you for the Yasmine, especially, and the Education Cannot Wait. Actually, after what happened in Gaza now, we are trying to recover the normal life of the people. Yes, it is not easy, but this is what we are trying to do. Because maybe the people, they saw the numbers, they saw the building destroyed. Maybe they saw the bombing. Maybe they hear about the people, how many people has been killed, how many school has been destroyed. But there is another lives. There is another details for the lives. So, for example, those who is living in this big building, which they are civilians, they have their own lives. They have their own things that suddenly in 1 minute they lost 50 years of memory. The fears that has been over 11 days, you cannot. It is difficult to describe. Just we spoke with the people from Gaza after this war. You cannot imagine the feeling that the people spoke during the 11 days. When a boy, 2 years old, he was crying when he hear any bombing, and his brothers, which is 5 years old, they are singing for him in order to reduce the fears on him. You can imagine these children, they play a medical role at the most difficult moments. This is, there is, when you see this video, where is this children, which is 5 years old, trying to make their brother, who is 2 years old, quiet. You can imagine the situation that the people was living in. The people, they try to play psychologist at the same time for themselves, but the situation was so difficult. What we are doing now, and this is what we call a quick intervention in Gaza. The psycho-social problem there is really need a quick intervention, fast intervention in Gaza. And I think that we have to speak with the family. The family, they need help. The teachers themselves, because how I can ask the teacher to continue teaching, normal teaching, while they are passing in the trauma? So the teachers themselves, they need help. And the student, the children also, really, they are still under the trauma where they need some people to help. We are trying as much as we can, but the international organization like Education Cannot Wait, maybe they are also, they can have much bigger influence in this regard.
Thank you. Refaat, I know that your background is as of a teacher, but I also wanted to bring in a current teacher actually from Palestine. And I'm delighted that Professor Ihab Sulaiman is joining us, who is a university lecturer and a writer from Gaza itself. Professor Sulaiman, tell us about the ground reality in Gaza today.
Okay, first of all, thank you for hosting me. Really honored to have this interview with you and to show what the real situation is in Gaza. This is a warm greeting from Gaza, sending everyone here salutation. I would like to start talking about education, and needless to say that education is one of the strongest fields that Palestine is known for. Particularly, um, this is very important in aggression zones as well. And I think that the education process is quite threatening to the occupation and to the propaganda of the other side. Nowadays, after the as for the upcoming days of the education and the post-aggression, I would say that nothing remained the same. Education now will be needing time to be restored and healed after the Israeli occupation forces haven't saved an effort to distort the infrastructure and to bomb different schools and universities as they did a few days ago. Not only the bomb was at the universities, but also at the schools. The like it was also a distorting of the streets, leading to the schools with heavy rockets that I literally and by my naked eye saw that those bombings left different meter deep holes in the streets. And it's not the first time, nor will it be their last time. This is a catastrophic situation in Gaza. Um, we're talking about the infrastructure. We're talking about the continuation of the educational process. We're talking about residential buildings that were bombed and leveled to the ground. And here, those people whose houses were bombed and completely destroyed, they had to go and they had to evacuate and leave their houses and go to schools. So they are now taking schools as shelters. And by the word shelters, I do not mean any kind of support from the United Nations, but it's like a ground and a ceiling that civilians can sleep in between. And aggression now leaves deep scars inside every single child. Let's not just say child, but also a Gazan, a Palestinian, but particularly children, because they are mostly affected psychologically and physically. So how would students come back to universities and schools? We would say that students would come back to universities and schools with millions of untold grief stories about their losses that would range from losing a family member, losing a friend, losing a relative, or in best cases, losing their houses. Students will literally need psychological therapy. And this is what we are worried about, because this does not take a very short period of time. This takes a very long period of time, to be honest.
Ihab, thank you so much for explaining that. And I want to now go to Yasmine, actually. Yasmine, in this situation, what is the role of an education cannot wait? Like, you're a fund that actually funds implementation organizations in all these conflict zones and in very desperate times. What is your value add in this situation? You're on mute.
I'm sorry. I thought that you had muted me. Anyway, our value add as a global fund for education emergencies and crisis is that we can move with speed. We can move very fast. And we have a colleague on the ground who is currently working with UN agencies, with civil society organizations to come in with an emergency response in the coming weeks, so that we can cater to at least 44,000 of the children and the youth affected by the situation. So we move very fast. We move faster than any fund on earth when it comes to this, because we are tailored specifically for emergencies and crisis. We have another window also for protracted crisis. Having said that, this is important. Of course, education cannot wait. For us, education is an inalienable inherent right in human rights conventions and international humanitarian law. We are also staunch supporter of the Safe School Declaration. right? Now, we hear sometimes, and we react immediately, of a school that is being attacked in country X, or one school was attacked in country Y. Now, here we are speaking about 46 schools in a week. 46 schools in a week. This is a number of schools every day systematically that were hit by airstrikes and shells. So I think we need to understand the gravity of the situation that Refaat and Ihab are explaining. So that's number one. Education cannot wait also work on long-term and protracted crisis where we also address the root causes. And this is the biggest, I would say, concern of all our strategic donor partners, of all international organizations. You cannot end a situation of human suffering if you do not address the root cause. And for anyone, and I have been to Gaza many, many times, for anyone who has been to Gaza, seen Gaza, or taken the time to understand what it looks like, this is not a sustainable situation. We can come in and fix an emergency response right now. But what we need in the end is what every human being deserves in the 21st century. Every child, every adolescent, it is the full spectrum of human rights, and education is one of them. But it's a full spectrum. We have 28 rights in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So the root cause has to be addressed this time. I have seen this in 2012, 2014, 2021. It's going to happen again. End it once and for all and live up to the universal values of humanity and give the rights to every child and adolescent.
And
in,
so, I mean,
in Gaza and across Palestine. And this goes for everyone living in that part of the world and the part of the world. And it should be done peacefully and non-violently, using human logic, human mind, and the human soul and the human heart.
I mean, so Yasmine, when I look at when I hear you, and I don't think anyone in their right minds can disagree with you, right? But yet we have a situation which is, people would easily describe as, apartheid. And so I want to know, in terms of like from an ECW perspective, how is it that you support global advocacy efforts, like this question says, to ensure every Palestinian child and youth has access to quality learning? And I suppose coming on T4 TV is an example of your advocacy. But what more can be done to make sure that the situation that you say needs to exist, which is, fairness and equality for all, actually takes place?
Well, education cannot wait. As a global fund hosted by the United Nations, we have, of course, made international human rights law, humanitarian law, refugee law, and the Safe School Declaration our founding principles.
Yeah.
And we should all subscribe to international law, because what we want is a law-abiding world based on our universal values. So we advocate for respect of international law when it comes to children and youth across the globe, including for the children and adolescents in Gaza, and of course also in Israel, across the region. But we are now speaking about Gaza and the massive destruction and the 46 schools in a week, which is absolutely extraordinary. And we will advocate for international respect of international law. We are not a human rights organization per se, but of course we greatly respect human rights organizations doing a very good job.
And so I now want to go to Refaat. Refaat, if you could unmute yourself, if you try it again. And so when we look at, this attack, latest attack was like, is in a series of like harsh military campaigns, right? Which target at least 2 generations of children and youth in Gaza since 2008. And this is on top of a 14-year siege of the Gaza Strip. You talked a little bit about the impact on children and youth in terms of their mental well-being, their performance, their outlook on life, the hope that they have, that witnessing all this violence, the scarcity of resources and isolation, these are all the things that you see. What hope do you have as someone who is a leader in the country and around the world?
Sorry, the last sentence, I didn't hear you in the last sentence.
I said, where does your hope come from in terms of, given the extreme circumstances of the, long history? It's not even a short history now. Tell us what resolve that you have.
Actually, the Palestinian in general, they depend on hope, not expectation. Because if we depend on the expectation, will we fall down always? If you depend on hope that some days you shall overcome it, then if you fall down, we will stand again. So from this, because the Palestinians, they have the hope that one day we will have our independent state and all this will go. That's why the people succeed to stand every time and continue their lives, which is very important in this. But let me say that also Gaza cannot wait. Not the education cannot wait. Gaza cannot wait. The Gaza now, it's, as you mentioned, Vikas, since 2008, especially the children have been facing very difficult conditions, which is every time, each year we're trying to repair what the occupation has destroyed. Another time, they destroy what we built as civil society, as international organization. Because what we have been doing since years, we are trying to achieve the education for all, the SGD4 right now. Now, what happened? This attack is make the achieving of SGD4, not just in Gaza, even in the Arab world, because the Arab world has been affected strongly by what happened in Gaza. You know, the social media, the TV in these times, it's reached every house. And the youth, the children, they saw what is going on in Gaza. And this affected the psychology of the youth in the Arab world. This pushed the people in a very strong trauma in general, which is really affected all the efforts that the region do to achieve the SGD4. In the coming June, in the June 4, we have this international days to protect the children from attack. So what we need really this time to secure the international mechanism to protect the children under attack, under this conflict zone, not just in Palestine, maybe everywhere. Because this war, as my friend Ihab mentioned, the most affected people, the children, but there is also the children with disability. You can imagine that those people with disability, when the bombing happened in their houses, they cannot move, they cannot help themselves. You can imagine these people in their situation. This is also need to be protected in this kind of conflict. So I think it should be international advocacy to create an international mechanism which force all the countries, the occupation, in order to be committed to this international mechanism to protect the civilian, the children, those people who is really weak in their countries.
Do you notice, Refaat, this time, at least I am, in that there's greater support for the argument that you make than any other time in history when the attacks have taken place? Do you sense that?
Yeah, this time the Palestinian also, one of the things that make the things it's easy, the big solidarity all over the world with the Palestinians. This means when you have this solidarity all over the world, when you have international organization like Education Cannot Wait spoke out, the people, they feel safe a little bit. You know, this is what the people need in the darkness. They need a voice who tell them that there is still hope in this world. There is still some kind of just, because the people here, they feel unjust in what is going on. What happened in Gaza, as Yasmine mentioned, you cannot imagine when 60 schools in 1 week destroyed, while we kept years building this, years bringing money from here and there. And now I think the teachers, the children, the families, the educational system cannot wait. We need fast intervention in Gaza. It's a human responsibility. It is not just a responsibility of one organization, of two organizations. From the civil society, we had meeting, and we have in the coming date also meeting for the educational coalition in order to put a response plan, what we can do, because our colleagues in Gaza also, they are facing a lot of a problem. For example, all that telecom facilities has been evicted. So it's sometimes it's difficult to reach them, even through Skype or through Zoom. So there is another things has been affected in Gaza, where we asking, we will try to go to Gaza. And this is another things that the Israeli always, they prevent us from going to Gaza. We have, as a teacher creativity center, we have office in Gaza. I cannot go there. I cannot go there. This is another thing that sometimes the Education Cannot Wait or other organization, if they want to help, sometimes there is on the ground, they prevent them to do their work. This is also the obstacle that the international countries, the international donors, the international organization, they should make advocacy. The international organization, all the NGOs, they should speak out. Sometimes I am surprised from some organization who keep silent. When you will speak, when you saw the violation of the human rights in this extremely very difficult way.
Thank you so much, Refaat. Ihab, if I may come to you, and I want to ask a question regarding, when we describe the situation in Gaza, and I'm told that it's a very challenging time even without these attacks, and it's what others have called apartheid, actually. Explain to people the discrimination that takes place over there, so that we get an understanding as to what this means.
Yes, the discrimination and the apartheid here in Gaza and the occupation lies in what we call it depriving Palestinians of their rights. This is generally speaking. So we're talking about Palestinian children, Palestinian families who face multiple challenges in various sectors. Reduction of the chances of obtaining their basic rights, the right for freedom, the free of speech, the of course the Israeli occupation has a prominent role in undermining the people's chances of obtaining their rights, um, especially in regard to mobility, treatment, life, life, human rights, life, and most importantly, education. The violation continues of the right of every single Palestinian, not only Gaza, whether in Gaza, in the West Bank, in the Palestinian Bank, and in the other Palestinian cities inside. What we noticed in the recent aggression on Gaza is something indescribable. Um, Everyone has seen the scenes of massacres. Of course, starting with the genocidal removal in Sheikh Jarrah by evacuating and forcing people to leave and evacuate their houses. Um, they did force 5,000 families to evacuate and leave from there, and this was the root cause of what happened and what raised the aggression to happen. What we saw here is all about massacres, um, death tolls, destruction, complete destruction to the infrastructure, complete destruction to the education, to the health sector. And now this has not stopped yet because now, as we can see, the borders are still closed. Uh, what has been agreed upon is now um, being rejected gradually, starting from the blockade again, and they have closed the borders. No aids will enter the Gaza Strip, and everything has to be in terms of the Israeli side. So they have uh, to accept everything. They have to accept in order to let people in Gaza live or not live. So they're trying to send a message now that everything that is happening now is in their hands. You know, in regard to let's say education, I strongly believe that Palestinian children are distinguished by courage and talent. And we have seen many children conveying their human stories and exerting, releasing their energy and suffering to the world in several simple ways, such as talking about patience and steadfastness from above the rubble, or telling a story that contains the suffering. But we still have a main problem, which is um, being deprived of many of the freedoms and rights that the children of the world outside enjoy in all other countries. And this is a main cause. And I've always asked myself a question that, like, for people, like, this is a simple question or a simple statement. Like, if you stand with the wrong side, give them a piece of your land, as they did in Palestine. And we Palestinians, we never hear calls for an end to the violence and aggression against Palestinians when Palestinians are suffering, dying, quietly getting their homes stolen, struggling by lacking life needs, literally life needs, everything. You know, now, for now, I'm coming here. I have come to the office that supports and has internet connection because the connection in my house, the electricity has not come for 35 hours. Can you imagine that? It means a day and a half we are without electricity. So so we never hear any call to an end, um, because we're suffering, lacking life needs, humiliated, imprisoned, tortured. However, it only starts to happen when Palestinians fight back, when Palestinians defend uh, themselves after this sign of brutality of what is so called bank targets. You know, I believe that the big picture now is, let's say, revealed to the world. Now, the world, people in particular, know more about what's going on in Gaza, know what Gaza is, know what Palestine is, and know what ethnic cleansing is, what apartheid is, what depriving Palestinians of their land and the right to live in their land peacefully is, forcing people to leave since 1948 until 2029. things are repeatedly happening so far. Every time they try to settle in, they try to take more of the land than possible, and they need a blind eye. They need a deaf ear. They need no talk. They want no talk. They don't need even the international media to know anything about this. And therefore, I would just shed the light on the importance of social media and the international organizations like the ones we have here, like Education Cannot Wait, and others. I do believe that we must acknowledge the power of social media and raise a generation whose word is powerful enough to be heard. Because we have a saying that says, "A pen is mightier than a sword." I do believe that this is very important, and we saw this. We saw the power of art, the power of word, to create change in the world. As I remember, Hassan Kanafani and Najib Ali, for example, their weapon was writing to Israeli crimes, to spread awareness about the Palestinian cause, human rights. And I guess they were the more
Ihab, I think the line is cutting up where you are. So I'm gonna ask Yasmine the last question, if that's okay, Yasmine. You heard Professor Sulaiman speak in graphic detail as to what happens. Tell us, what is it that we can all do to help the situation become better for children in Palestine? Again, you're on mute, ma'am.
For children and adolescents, and I want to stress the youth as well, the adolescents, because their voice is speaking now. It is the youth that are telling the world, we want to live like every other child and young person in other parts of the world. We cannot say that we support youth and then not listen to the Palestinian youth. And as long as they are peaceful and non-violent, their voice must be heard. And we need to listen to what they are saying and then support them. That's how we empower the young generation. I want just to come back to what Refaat and Professor Ihab said. You know, we have seen this vicious circle of violence. So there is violence, schools are destroyed, lives of students, of teachers. Then comes EU member states, the US, Canada, others, and rebuild and put more money. And then it's destroyed again. And then they have to rebuild. Can you imagine how much we could do to create sustainability and really end that cycle rather than trying to beautify hell? You can't beautify hell. And we cannot waste money trying to rebuild and then destruction, rebuild and destruction. Somewhere the destruction has to stop. And let me say this. In every world religion or ethnic group, there's a golden rule, whether it is Islam, Judaism, Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism, the golden rule. Don't do to others what you would not want to be done to yourself. For anyone who supports the unsustainable situation for young people and children in Gaza today, I suggest they send their children and teenage boys and girls to go to school in Gaza. They could do a boarding school year there, or two. That's really good for peace building. So I think it's important we go back to our values and understand the situation on the ground, that we tell the world that we are advocating for the golden rule, and all human rights and international humanitarian law springs from the golden rule. And the better a nation treats everyone on its territory, not just citizens, everyone on the territory, refugees, people who are stateless, people who cannot get their citizenship, The better one treats the people on its territory, the more one reveals one's humanity. And of course, the reverse applies. And the world is watching. Thank you.
Thank you, Yasmine. Refaat, it'd be wrong for me not to end with you because you have taught me so much. Refaat, if there's one thing those that are watching this can do, I mean, we don't live in the area that you are. We are all over the world. You've seen the comments from Bangladesh, from India, from Romania, from Bosnia, from the UK. What is it that all of us can do to be supportive? You're on mute, sir. Yeah.
I will repeat what Yasmine said, that destruction should stop. They should stop destroying every time what the people has been done, especially when you speak about education. Gaza, between two pandemics, first has been affected by coronavirus, and then by this disaster humanity that happened in Gaza. I think we have to do international advocacy in order to help Gaza by pushing the occupation to be really committed to the international laws and to create international mechanism preventing the occupation from destroying Gaza again. What happened in Gaza, most of the people who have been affected is the civilians. And I am calling now the international organization to do inception mission. They have to go to Gaza to see what is going on. You cannot exactly know what happened in Gaza unless if you go in and see exactly how the civilians, teachers, women, the elders who has been affected. And when we speak about women, the woman is also the most effective part because they took responsibility over the families. The woman, the International Women Organization, they should have their responsibility towards the woman in Gaza. This is, it's really sometimes we are feeling useless in order to describe what is going on. We still saw the things from outside. Go and ask the people inside. They will speak with the feeling, not just with the numbers, with describing the things. They will describe the things with the human feeling. I think this disaster should stop in Gaza.
Well, thank you all so much for joining me today. Professor Sulaiman, really thank you so much for making the time to join us and actually shifting from your house to your office to take part in this interview. Refaat, brother, all the time you make the time and you're fighting from the front. Thank you so much for advocating for education and being so wise in your words. And Yasmine, the work that you have set yourself at ECW is nothing but God's work. And so no matter which God we believe in. And so please know that I'm really grateful to all of you for making the time today to take part in this. Thank you. And I do hope that we don't have to do this talk ever again, because I think this is a disaster for children and young people the world over when there's so much suffering. Thank you all for your time and much more happy interactions.